All right, get ready to dive deep because we're tackling Blood of Hercules today.
Ooh, exciting.
The first book in
Yes.
Jasmine Mas's Villains of Lore series.
Okay.
And we've got this really detailed book review podcast script to work with.
Awesome.
So we're basically getting a sneak peek at a whole new take on these myths.
Nice.
Like, you know, are you ready to see a Hercules that is so not the hero from the Disney movie?
Definitely.
Yeah,
I think having that source material background really adds a layer to this.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Especially when it comes to, analyzing a book like this.
Totally.
So
Okay, first of all,
Yeah.
this Hercules is like,
Right.
he's wrestling with being the son of Zeus, right?
Right.
But what I thought was really interesting in the review was that they made a point of saying that he's not just like this broody
Yeah.
demigod.
Yeah.
He's really morally complex.
Yep.
Like he's almost teetering on the edge of darkness all the time.
Totally. And I think that seems to be a trend. With all of these, like, modern retellings of all these classic myths,
Oh, for sure.
it's like all these authors are, like, digging deeper into these figures.
Yeah.
Peeling back those, like, heroic layers and, revealing all the flaws and struggles.
Right.
And, it
Yeah.
really makes them relatable to modern readers.
Totally.
Like, I think audiences are a little bit more cynical now
Oh, yeah, for sure.
than, like, audiences in the past.
Definitely. And speaking of relatable,
Yeah.
this book also has like this awesome female lead.
Right.
And from what I can tell from the reviewer, thankfully,
Yeah.
she's not just like sitting around waiting for
Right.
Hercules to come and save her.
Exactly.
Like
yeah.
she has her own ambitions and she's strong enough to go toe to toe with Hercules.
I love that.
Yeah. It's like a breath of fresh air
Yeah.
compared to like some other fantasy romances where the heroine is just kind of like,
Yeah, just kind of there.
yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's so refreshing
Yeah.
to see that authors are moving away from those, like, damsel in distress tropes,
Right.
giving these heroines their own agency,
Totally.
their own desires, goals
Yeah.
that are independent from, like, the hero's journey.
Right.
Makes it so much more engaging.
For sure. For sure. And you know what else is interesting?
What's that?
The world building.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they mentioned this magical marketplace
Oh, yeah.
where gods and mortals hang out together.
Right.
But there's like this underlying tension.
Yeah.
Like you can just tell that there's danger lurking beneath the surface.
Totally. And I think creating that kind of atmosphere is so crucial in fantasy,
Yeah.
especially when you're dealing with, gods who
Right.
could just unleash their wrath at any moment.
Exactly.
Keeps you on the edge of your seat.
Totally.
What's going to happen next?
Yeah, it's like you never know if you're going to run into Aphrodite shopping for love potions or
Right. Exactly.
Ares is going to, challenge you to a duel
Yeah.
if
Wow.
you like spill your drink on him.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
speaking of the gods, they're not portrayed as like these benevolent, all-powerful beings either.
Yeah. That's what makes this retelling so interesting.
Right.
The reviewer is pointing out
Yeah.
that the gods are just as, like, flawed and messy
As
the mortals,
Yeah.
driven by jealousy, lust, power struggles.
Right.
You can, like, practically feel the drama coming off the pages.
Oh, yeah. It's like almost like she's saying like, hey, even gods have their off days.
Right.
And honestly, that makes them so much more interesting than this whole perfect and untouchable thing.
Definitely.
Like, who wants to read about a god who always makes the right choices?
Right. Exactly.
Like, where's the fun in that?
That moral ambiguity
Yeah.
that makes them so interesting, right?
Totally.
Like, they make mistakes, they act impulsively.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're just straight up villainous.
Right.
So it really challenges your perception of good and evil.
Totally. Makes you question who to root for.
Yeah.
What really makes a hero?
Exactly. And that complexity
Yeah.
seems to even extend to the romance.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the reviewer used words like electric and intense
Okay.
to describe the chemistry
Nice.
between Hercules and the heroine.
Yeah.
Plus, it's like enemies to lovers,
Oh.
which, let's be honest,
Yeah.
always creates some serious sparks.
It's always a recipe for some good drama.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So,
That slow burn, that push and pull between
Yeah.
attraction and distrust,
right.
that can be like so captivating.
Yeah.
And then you add in the backdrop of this like
Yeah.
mythical world,
Right.
meddling gods, epic battles.
Like a recipe for an addictive read.
Yeah, totally.
And it sounds like
Yeah.
the romance isn't just like a side plot.
Okay.
It's really intertwined with everything that's going on.
Right.
And it even might affect the fate of the world.
Wow.
So I'm really curious.
To see how she navigates that, like, delicate balance between personal and epic.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, Blood of Hercules doesn't shy away from tackling, like, those bigger themes, like power dynamics, destiny versus free will.
Yeah.
The idea that even heroes can be corrupted.
Ooh, that last one is really interesting. It makes you wonder
Yeah.
what would even push a guy like Hercules, who's supposed to represent strength and virtue towards that darker path.
Exactly.
What kind of internal struggle would he be dealing with?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks to that larger theme of subverting expectations.
Right.
That runs through the whole book.
Totally.
Like, she's really challenging those traditional ideas we have about heroes and villains.
Right.
Like, forcing us to confront those gray areas of morality.
Totally. Okay, so we've got this flawed Hercules, this strong heroine.
Yeah.
A world where gods have bad days. A romance that's going to set Olympus on fire.
I love it.
Is there anything else we should know before we really dive in?
The reviewer did have a couple of critiques.
Okay.
Mainly about the pacing.
Yeah.
In the first couple chapters.
Okay.
And some of the dialogue feeling a little stilted.
Okay.
But overall, they gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Wow.
Praising those action sequences and the originality of the story.
Okay, so it sounds like
the
strengths definitely outweigh the weaknesses.
Yeah, I think so.
And honestly, who hasn't read a book with the slow start that turned out to be amazing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about the overall experience.
Right.
And from what we've gathered, it seems like it really delivers.
Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued.
Yeah.
But, okay, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's actually take a closer look at how Mas subverts the traditional Hercules myth.
Okay.
Like, what specific details stood out to you?
Well, one thing that caught my eye was how she connects Hercules' like inner struggle to his superhuman strength.
Okay.
In the myths, it's always like this awesome gift from the gods.
Right.
But here it seems like it's also a burden.
Yeah.
Like it's a constant reminder of his violent nature.
You're right.
And he's trying so hard to control it.
That's such a cool twist.
Yeah.
Like, it makes you think about how different his whole journey is in this book. Instead of like, striving for glory and all that, maybe he's more focused on like atonement.
Totally.
Or even proving that he's more than just this weapon to the gods.
Yeah, that's what I got from the reviewer too.
Okay.
Is like she's using his strength as this metaphor for like the destructive potential that's inside all of us.
Yeah.
It's about the choices we make.
Okay.
Do we embrace that power for good or let it consume us?
Right. And that choice is probably even harder for Hercules because of, who his dad is.
Good. Exactly. He's got all these expectations.
Yeah. And not to mention.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the gods are constantly meddling.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of the gods.
Yeah. Please tell me more about how they're portrayed.
Forget those, like, majestic, all-knowing gods that you see in other stories.
Yeah, yeah.
These gods are petty, vindictive, always meddling in mortal affairs.
Yeah.
Often with, like, disastrous results.
Yeah.
Like, the reviewer mentions this scene.
Okay.
Where Aphrodite, like, curses this mortal woman.
Okay.
Just because she rejected one of her, like, favorite demigods.
Oh, my God.
Talk about holding a grudge.
Seriously. Okay, so it sounds like the gods are, like, basically walking soap opera characters. Just creating chaos wherever they go.
Yeah, but I think there's a deeper meaning behind all of that.
Okay.
Like, maybe she's trying to say something about the nature of power itself.
Interesting. Okay, so...
by showing these gods as flawed, selfish, she's highlighting how corrupting power can be.
Yeah.
Even for, supposedly divine beings.
Right.
Makes you wonder if anyone can really handle that kind of authority without, falling prey to their darker impulses.
Totally. And that's a pretty heavy theme.
Right.
Especially when you consider that Hercules is stuck.
Oh, yeah. He's right in the middle of it all.
Right in the middle of this whole power struggle.
Yeah.
It makes his inner conflict even more compelling.
Definitely.
He's not just battling his own demons, but he's also trying to navigate this world where even the gods are playing dirty.
And remember, he's half god himself.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So he's like susceptible to those same influences.
Right.
It creates this like crazy tension.
Okay, so I'm hooked.
Yeah.
But we can't forget about the romance.
Right.
So we know it's enemies to lovers, but what else can you tell us about their dynamic?
One thing that the reviewer highlighted was their shared experience of being outsiders.
Okay.
So Hercules is ostracized because of his strength and his heritage. And the heroine, who we don't know the name of yet.
Right. They're keeping that a secret.
Yeah, to avoid spoilers.
Right.
But she's also an outcast.
Okay.
For reasons that we'll learn about later.
Okay.
But this shared isolation seems to create this, like, powerful bond.
That makes sense. Like when you're constantly being judged, feared by everybody.
When you find someone who sees you for who you are, can be super alluring.
Totally.
Even if they start out as your enemy.
Yeah. And in this case, it sounds like that animosity comes from like a clash of their personality.
Right. It sounds like she's fiercely independent. Unwilling to back down from a challenge.
Yeah.
Even if that challenge is like a demigod with a temper.
Exactly. So it sounds like their relationship is not all hearts and flowers.
No, it's definitely not.
Okay, so...
Full of witty banter.
Okay.
Power struggles. And a lot of sexual tension.
Ooh. I love it when a romance has like that extra bite.
Oh, me too. Me too.
It's so much more satisfying.
Totally.
When the characters actually have to work for it.
Yeah.
But with all this talk of enemies and tension, do we get any sense of what...
It seems like a key turning point.
Yeah.
Is when they're forced to team up against a common enemy.
Okay.
So the reviewer mentioned this scene where they're fighting side by side against this like monstrous creature sent by the gods.
Okay.
And during this battle, they see each other's strengths, vulnerabilities, and that shared experience of danger and resilience.
Right.
Seems to create like a more profound connection.
Classic bonding over fighting a monster.
Right.
But you know it works, especially when it's done well.
Totally.
And it lets the characters see past their differences and recognize that goodness in each other.
Exactly. And I think that's crucial for an enemies to lovers story.
Yeah.
Like there has to be that foundation of respect and admiration.
Right.
Otherwise, it just feels forced and unearned.
And based on what the reviewer said,
it
sounds like she pulls it off.
Oh, yeah.
They were really excited about.
Yeah, they praised how it was a slow burn.
Yeah.
So it develops organically as they learn to trust each other.
That makes me think about those pacing issues.
Oh, yeah.
That the reviewer mentioned earlier.
Right.
Maybe that slow start was intentional, like a way to gradually build the tension and complexity in both the plot and the relationship.
It's like she's setting the stage for an explosive climax.
And you know what's really interesting?
Look at that.
The reviewer hinted that the romance is more than just a personal journey for them.
Yeah.
Like it might actually hold the key to saving the world from the gods' power struggles.
Talk about high stakes.
I know. So it's not just a battle for their hearts.
Right.
It's a battle for like all of humanity.
Exactly.
And it's a pretty cool twist on the myth.
It is. It makes me think about how she's using this story to explore the transformative power of love.
Right.
So in the classic myths, Hercules is always driven by glory.
Right.
And proving himself.
Yeah.
But in this book,
yeah,
it seems like his love for the heroine might actually unlock his true potential.
I love that. And it brings us back to this idea of subverting expectations.
Totally.
Like she's taking these familiar elements from the myth, strength, heroism, love, and reinterpreting them.
Exactly.
In a way that feels both new and like deeply meaningful.
Right.
But before we get too caught up in the themes, I want to touch on one more thing.
Okay.
World building.
Oh, yeah.
So we talked about the marketplace.
Yeah.
But what other details can you share?
Well, from what I gathered, she's kind of woven together these elements of Greek mythology, but also her own creations.
Okay.
So the reviewer mentioned these like enchanted forests.
Okay.
Full of like mythical creatures. These hidden temples dedicated to like forgotten gods.
Oh, wow.
And even a shadowy underworld.
Okay.
That seems to be pretty important in the story.
That sounds awesome.
Right.
It's like she took the classic myths and expanded on them, creating this world that's both familiar and surprising.
Right.
Like you get the sense that you might just turn a corner.
Yeah.
And run into a satyr playing the pipes.
Totally.
Or a nymph taking a bath in a moonlit pool.
Yeah, and it sounds like the world building isn't just about, a cool backdrop.
Right.
It's actually really tied into the themes.
Okay.
So like the reviewer was hinting that the different locations, like the forests, the temples, the underworld, they represent different parts of Hercules' internal struggle.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like those old maps where they used to draw sea monsters on the unexplored parts of the ocean.
Totally.
Except the monsters are real here.
Exactly.
And they're more than just physical threats.
Right. And speaking of monsters, the reviewer raved about the action in this book.
Yeah.
So they said that Mas has this way of creating these like vivid, heart-pounding battles.
Okay.
That are both like visually stunning and really emotionally charged.
I can picture it now.
Right.
Hercules is fighting a hydra with his bare hands.
Yeah.
The heroine is outsmarting a cyclops.
Totally.
All while they're in this like immersive world.
It sounds like a movie.
Yeah, it really does.
But from what they emphasized, the action scenes aren't just like mindless spectacle.
Right.
They're really tied into the characters' emotions.
Okay.
So each battle forces them to face their fears.
Right.
Make tough choices.
Yeah.
And ultimately grow stronger.
Okay.
Both individually and as a couple.
That's what makes a good action scene.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just about the fight.
Exactly.
It's about what it shows us about the characters.
Right.
About how they have to dig deep.
Yeah.
Find the courage to keep going.
Exactly.
Even when it seems impossible.
And from the sound of it, this book is packed with those moments.
Okay.
The reviewer mentioned a scene towards the end.
Okay.
Where they're facing impossible odds. And it's their love that gives them the strength to win.
Ooh, chills.
Right.
Okay, so it sounds like she strikes that balance.
Totally.
Between action, romance, emotional depth. But before we wrap this up, I want to go back to subverting expectations.
Right.
So we've talked about how she changed the Hercules myth.
Right.
But is there a bigger message here?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what makes this book so interesting.
Okay.
So by showing us a flawed Hercules, a strong heroine, gods who are far from perfect, she's challenging us to rethink our ideals about good and evil.
Right.
She's reminding us that it's not black and white.
Yeah.
Even the heroes have their dark sides.
Right.
And sometimes the villains are more sympathetic.
Totally. And that's such an important message.
Yeah.
Especially these days.
Right.
When everything's so polarized. Yeah, it's so easy to just label people.
Totally.
Without really understanding them.
Exactly.
So she's encouraging us to see the humanity in everyone.
Right.
Even those who seem monstrous.
And I think that's what makes this book so relevant and thought-provoking.
It's not just a good story.
Right.
It makes you think about the world.
Exactly.
Okay, well said. So I think it's time to come up for air from our deep dive into Blood of Hercules.
Yeah.
But before we go,
I
want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
If you could rewrite any myth, which one would you choose?
Ooh.
And how would you change it?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
And one that deserves some thought.
Yeah, but for now,
we'll
let you explore the world of Blood of Hercules on your own.
Exactly.
I think you're really going to enjoy it.
Me too.
Until next time, keep reading and keep thinking.
See you then.